This rogue judge out of Wisconsin, you may remember earlier this year, back in April, this judge was accused of helping an illegal migrant who was before her court evade detention and arrest from immigration officials. What happened there was these officials came to serve a warrant at the courthouse where this individual was before this judge, Judge Hannah Dugan in Wisconsin. And when the judge found out about this, that the agents were there waiting, not getting in the way of the proceedings, but waiting until they were over, she caused a pause in the proceedings in her courtroom, went outside and spoke with the agents, told them they weren't allowed to do this, they needed to go talk to the chief judge, so sent them. And while they were distracted going to talk to the chief judge, who actually said, yes, you can do this, you are doing everything right, you had gotten all the pre-discussions with the security involved. This is actually a place where a lot of times these type of arrests happen because it is seen as safer for the public. If there is a contentious arrest, they have already gone through security. They know that weapons will not be present that could put officers or the individual or the public in greater danger. Chief Judge says, you are allowed to do this. Thank you. Just wait until the proceedings are over. And what did the judge, Hannah Dugan, do during this time? She helped that individual escape out the back, go through her chambers with the individual's attorney, and escape law enforcement. There was a foot chase outside the courthouse, and that individual was apprehended. But it didn't end there, because this judge was accused of stopping and interfering with the enforcement duties of the immigration officials. She was charged with a crime. This crime included 2 counts. One was an obstruction charge against federal law enforcement. The other was a misdemeanor charge that would have been a concealment of an individual for arrest. Yesterday, a jury of her peers convicted her of that obstruction charge, the felony charge. She was acquitted of the misdemeanor concealment charge, but this felony obstruction charge has been handed down by a jury of her peers. They will be appealing it. As a matter of fact, their legal team said this trial required considerable resources to prepare for, and public support for Judge Dugan's defense fund is critical as we prepare for the next phase of this defense, meaning their appeal. This felony conviction could see up to 5 years in jail time. Also, under Wisconsin state law, she will no longer, as a convicted felon, at least at this point, be able to be a judge again in the state of Wisconsin. So there is some accountability. And once again, sometimes we see the wheels of justice turn slowly. But in this case, the event happened in April, and we have a conviction here in December of 2025. And I want you to remember also, this judge tried in some of the pretrial motions to claim that the Supreme Court decision that presidents of the United States have an immunity against being charged with a crime for official acts. That was a defense in pretrial motions that the attorneys for this judge tried to raise. Say basically, look, Supreme Court gave the president of the United States immunity for official acts, therefore I'm immune. It made no logical sense. It was a good try and was obviously not accepted by the judge here. But the whole idea that no one is above the law and that the left was saying it was so dangerous that the president of the United States had this limited immunity decision by the Supreme Court, which said, listen, if it's within the official acts of the president of the United States, you cannot then try to go after a president for things they did as president as a crime later. That would lead to chaotic, continuous prosecution of former presidents by political enemies. That isn't what happened here. What happened here was a judge that is supposed to be an arbiter of the law, judging, calling balls and strikes, as they say, decided to take the law into her own hands. The individual was before her court for a completely different reason, and U.S. immigration officials came there to serve a warrant, which was issued for this individual, and she ran interference for this individual that was in her courtroom. She went out and tried to stop the agents, distracted them by sending them to talk to the chief judge. And during that time, snuck this individual who had snuck into our country illegally out of the back of her courtroom through her own chambers in an attempt to let them flee justice. That doesn't sound like what we want from judges in this country, but it's what she did. And she had her day in court, and she had a speedy trial. And here we are in December, where she now is a convicted felon under the laws of the United States.
We all need to keep this case in proper perspective, and I hope that all viewers, readers, listeners will pay attention to this. Some have sought to make this about a larger political battle. While this case is serious for all involved, it is ultimately about a single day, a single bad day in a public courthouse. The defendant is certainly not evil, nor is she a martyr for some greater cause. It was a criminal case like many that make their way through this courthouse every day, and we all must accept the verdict peacefully.
And I think the concern from the U.S. attorney there is warranted, that because of the high stakes of this, because of the emotions that go into this, we saw how bad the riots in L.A. and other places where many other people were trying to obstruct federal law enforcement from doing their job, how it broke out. Cars being set on fire. It required a National Guard response from the President of the United States. The U.S. attorney is trying to avoid that breaking out in Milwaukee in the Christmas holiday season, saying, listen, we did our job. There is a conviction, but you can voice yourself peacefully, but let's not cause havoc over this conviction. And I think the process played out well. But to that point as well, I understand what the U.S. attorney is trying to do there and agree with that position from the U.S. attorney, instead of him coming out and saying this is a warning to every single person in the country that you shall not obstruct. But in reality, that is what it is, because we have seen rogue judges since day one of the new Trump administration, whether it be nationwide injunctions, which we had to fight all the way to the Supreme Court, whether it be the egregious act of this judge of trying to take the law into her own hands. It should be a statement for judges that you are not above the law. It is not your job to be the jury in a federal immigration case that is not before you when there is a warrant out for someone's arrest, to decide then and there that you are going to help someone flee.